Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third Wheel of Time live show for the Dragon Reborn. If you are watching this back, hello, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. If you are here live, hello, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. Sandra, how do we usually start these things?
I don't know. That's it. We're done now.
We're done.
No.
We're out.
Leave a
I
comment.
don't
That's
have
it.
the book. It's over there, and that's too much effort. But book 3. It's the one before it gets really huge. It's like a
Yeah, the next one
41-hour
is like
audiobook for the next book.
I was supposed to check after I finished this one how big the next one was, and I forgot to, so I haven't had that shock yet.
900 pages.
Did you finish this today, Becca?
Yeah, but I was supposed to. Like, so many people came into my thing and was like, "Oh, I can't believe you're reading this today," and I was like, "No, I was supposed to." Like, I sectioned it out of pages per day, including today, and I just needed to read my daily section. And everyone was just coming attacking me, and I'm like, "I'm on track."
Your Patreon live though made it look like you had 100 pages or something to go.
Well,
Not
you
like
got to get them to turn up.
I'm so glad you liked it. I guess this is the point maybe where we should say what we thought, and I will not go first.
Okay.
You don't want me to go first.
I can go first.
Go.
I don't know. I feel like this is so similar to the Great Hunt. Like Great Hunt and this one is basically the same book. So it's like if you
Glad you
didn't
said
like the
that.
Great Hunt, how can you like? I feel like they're very similar. Like in
The
what
Great
is
Hunt
happening
without
with the
Rare.
different characters. Like it literally happens the same thing to them. So I sat there and I was a bit like, this is a bit weird. I feel like I'm reading the same book again because I didn't like think that much about it like the first time I read them. But like I enjoy it. I like seeing the developments for the different characters. I like the whole like Asadai stuff with like Egwene and all them, even though they keep coming there and going over and over.
Mhm.
And I like the little like there's always like a real battle thing in the end that doesn't make any sense. And like that we slowly developing the world. And then like me meeting new people and characters. Like I just like the slow developments. Even though I do realize that like if you look upon it in another way, it's like nothing really happened. But and at the same time I'm enjoying the journey, so I don't really care. So give it like 4 stars.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I disagree. Because everything that I disliked, and in hindsight, I need to adjust my rating of book 2 down to 3 because I didn't really like that book. It was just fine. But this book fixed everything that I hated about the second book. So, like, I hate Rand. He's not in it.
True.
In book 2, everyone is just sat around waiting for the plot to happen. And then they're like, oh no, what do we do? In this book, every single perspective had a goal, and the conclusion, instead of coming out of nowhere like it did in book 2, was actually the conclusion of everyone's goal. So, like, Perrin was following Rand. He found Rand. Matt was looking for Egwene. Eventually, after he delivered his letter, he was like, need to go find Egwene. He found Egwene. They were all looking for the stone thing in Tyr. They found that. And then they concluded with, like, what they were all trying to do. Like, I mean, there was things that like people escaped that weren't supposed to escape, but they had a purpose. They actually went out and did it, and they accomplished it. So yeah.
So you like this more than last
Yeah,
book?
I gave this one 4 stars, and it is actually I think my favorite in the series, and like a solid 4.
There's a lot of 4 stars. Many people agree with you. Only made it to half. Had too many book clubs. This is a mood.
Yeah.
And Cassidy's a slacker, but it's fine. We still love you.
Like 40%.
40% love? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just get to be, I need you here because then I don't sound as harsh. I'm probably going to give it a 2 star. I did feel like a lot of this book had very similar goals and similar like things that it was attempting to do to the Great Hunt and to book 1. We just kind of all come together. We have something we're going to do. We split up. We go do all these things and then we come back together. And it's just a lot of like traveling from point A to point B. To me, it felt very much so like each group sat down and said, we need to do this. They traveled to a spot. They talked to some people. They learn what they need to know. They travel to a different spot. They talk to people. They learn what they need to know. And it just
progression though, because normally they're not doing that. Normally they're just wandering around in fields being surprised when things happen.
You know how much I love travel though.
I lied in the middle of your sentence. I just missed what you said. I'm just like, it's probably.
And then I think it just frustrates me because I like books with strong female characters, and for me right now, none of them don't annoy me. If Nynaeve tugged her braid one
Oh
more
my god, yeah, no.
time,
For sure.
I was gonna lose my mind.
She's gonna tug
I
that
also
braid
don't like
until the
Nynaeve.
last book.
She tugs her braid until the last book. Oh god.
No, like it feels like she does at least.
You probably.
I'm not so surprised that she has any hair left. How much she's tugging her braid.
The thing that's actually really annoying me now that was fun in the first book, but is just really irritating at this point, is how they're like, "Oh my god, Randy's so much better with girls than I am," and it's like, I don't give a flying fuck. Like, it's funny once, and it's funny to see it from both perspectives once. It's not funny every 3 chapters.
Yeah, all the boys think the other boys are better with girls. I'm like,
but like,
okay.
we've got that now. Like, the joke is dead.
I think it's just this still has that slight undertone of young adult in that they're all still teenagers. And so all of their motivations and their like thought processes and what they talk about is still very teenager, which a lot of times in an adult epic fantasy, you'll still see those motivations, but then like you said, Becca, that will grow out of it and they will move past it eventually once you're in the kind of, oh crap, we're all going to die kind of situation. But I feel like Robert Jordan hasn't moved past that. He's still very stuck in their like teenage personalities. And I think that's why maybe they annoy me so much, is because it's like, okay, we have dire situations going on here. Your friends are missing, people are dying, and you're going to talk about how hot somebody is or how much you want to sleep with someone or how much better they are with girls. Like, no, it's not realistic. Even a teenager wouldn't do that.
It's because you knew you had 20 books to develop them. You know?
I can't do it.
I don't know about his writing process and how fast he wrote books, but I know the first 2 books were published in 1990 and the third in 1991. So I don't know like whether he already had them all written and then they were published on a schedule, or whether he was just, you know, like pumping them out back to back.
I think there's a lot about like, I think I heard people say that there was like, you know, a year between every book or something, you know, ish. So like at that point, if people read them as a release, they would forget the details. That's why he like it keeps bringing up things again to remind. But like if you read them a bit back to back, it's like you get just repetitive stuff over and over, like how the one power works, etc. Embracing that flower over and over. It's a bit like you get it now. You know,
I think that's the thing, is it's just this is such a long fantasy series and the books are so long. There's no way that you need that much space. And so it continues to be very repetitive, but I'm noticing it because we're all reading them so close together. It's extremely obvious to me, and it's getting harder and harder and harder to ignore. I just feel like even though this one did have a decent amount of world building, I did like when they were doing their like trials and you got to see that and got to see kind of how, I think Becca maybe in the first one said she thought it was like the present, the future, or whatever kind of thing. And you got to see more of that, which was cool. Yeah. The Aiel was cool, but those are just such small snippets amongst all of the teenage drama that I just,
I feel like what I really want to see in the series as a whole is because, like, at the point, it feels like we're doing a speed run of every location on the map. I want to see it come together. Like, I want it to be, like, fair enough if we're doing a speed run now to get all of the information, but, like, to see things work better in tandem later on. Because, like, we had the Sean-chan in the second book, and they just, like, were vanquished and disappeared. And then they were very vaguely referenced in the third book. Like, they're just not, they just left, and it's like,
yeah, because they were defeated by the horn.
It's not like I see what he's trying to do. I feel like he's introducing all of these groups for them to play a small part of a greater whole later on, but the way that it's happening doesn't feel very organic. Agreed. Like the end scenes, the end battles, which I still don't like the end of this book because I just don't like how he writes action scenes, but it very much feels like a TV fantasy series, but like from the 90s, not from now. So it doesn't feel like Game of Thrones. It feels like Xena Warrior Princess. Like the boss battles are like vanquishing Disney villains.
Yeah, completely agreed.
But like I feel like I see what he's trying to do. I just don't feel like it's done, like it's not coming together
Mm-hmm.
as seamlessly as it could.
Yeah. Like, I agree with this. Even other authors will give you a recap, but you don't have to hammer home the same details in such length every single book. And that concerns me a little for book 4, because it's like, okay, if we're being so repetitive on the details in such depth now, that's 900 pages. How much are we going to recap? Like,
Oh, see, Cassidy said I don't trust him to get there, sadly, but you don't need to. You need to trust Brandon Sanderson to get there. Like, that's why it's fine for me, because I'm like, Brandon Sanderson.
but the number of books that we have to get through to get to Sanderson finishing it off is freaking terrifying.
I know, but yeah, Sanderson payoff is beautiful.
You will just blink and then they will, like, you won't even notice the time has passed.
Sandra, what world do you live in? Because I need to join you. I do agree with this, though. I liked the Matt chapters, and I've always liked Tom, but I thought that was a lot more interesting, getting to see that character a little bit better.
Actually, I don't like Matt that much. I think his personality is a bit annoying, but one of my favorite scenes with him was in this book when like he is just cured from his dagger stuff, and then he owned the people like with his what's it called, quarterstaff. And I thought that just scene is just very fun because they're just like, oh, you can do it, and then he comes in and it's just like, I know I just got sick, but and then he just like beats them.
It doesn't make any sense. I will say that.
But it was good, but it doesn't.
It was still entertaining. It doesn't need to make sense.
Matt actually grew on me throughout this book. I didn't like him to start off with because I feel like he very much has no accountability for his actions. He takes no responsibility for everything. He's always complaining about how everything's wrong, and none of it is ever his fault. It's everybody else's fault.
True.
Like, he never goes like, this shit thing has happened because of me. It's always because of somebody else. But he did grow on me throughout this book, and I think that I enjoyed his perspective more than Perrin's in this book.
Yeah, I did not like
him. As characters, I feel like I like Perrin more still.
Speaking about Perrin, the only thing he did was follow Moraine the whole book. He didn't actually do anything. And then he met Serene, aka, what's her name again? Aiel. And she's one of my least favorite characters in the whole series, and I just want her to die. I'm so sorry.
She reminded me a lot. I don't know if
and she's not, and I know, like, obviously I know, and I'm just like, oh my god, I forgot that she's here this early, and I'm just like, please let me out of here, because now Perrin becomes like nothing. So I'm just like, oh, maybe you guys will feel different.
She reminds me of Farrow in the Joe Abercrombie books right now.
I've read the first 2, and I don't even know who you're talking about.
The that is her name, right? The one that's like just really aggressive for no reason in book 1.
The one that did she do the thing with the dude in the second book? When they okay, it's her. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you can spoil the second book. You can say it, Sandra. You can say it.
You know, but the second book in the John Abercrombie, not Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's why I was being vague.
I got you now. I zoned out there for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, there's got to be a happy medium to this, though, Jonathan.
I do like that it's approachable, because I, going into this knowing absolutely nothing about it, I did worry that it was going to be really dense and like really dry. So I like that the writing style is it's not too intimidating. It's just the actual like sheer length of the books that's intimidating.
I feel like you get everything that's going on. It's just a bit repetitive, like of the things going on. What did you guys think of? I always forget how to say it. Telon Ollie Rod. Like the Dream Place. Telon Ollie Rod. How do you say it? I listen to the audiobooks and I can't say it.
out on all the proper nouns, so you're gonna have to tell me what it is, and then I'll tell you what.
The Dream Place they go to. Egwene uses the like stone thing. I know the name, and then she goes in there, and then also Perrin is there to the wolf thing.
I'm not a fan of dream realms and dream sequences in general, and it is a little bit frustrating, especially like it happened again in this. How Rand had like a dream sequence where he killed the boss. Instead of like, and then he's like, oh, and then I came back to the room and everything. So I hate that keeps happening in this series. But I did like how Egwene finally gained mastery over it. and started to interact with it like right at the end there. I also think that it's very interesting that they're all having prophetic dreams, because Egwene's supposed to be super special because she's the dreamer. Like, that is going to be her speciality, everybody assumes. But all of the Targaryen at the moment are having prophetic dreams, and I'm wondering whether it's something to do with the fact that they're Targaryen, or whether it's because Lanfear is the like queen of the dream realm and she's interfering with them all.
Yeah. I also think it's fun when everyone is like, oh, she's evil. And I'm like, yeah, what did you think? But I actually love the dream. Well, I hate dream sequences as well. Because I think it's so annoying that they're like, oh, I'm so sad. My father died in a dream sequence, and it's like obviously a dream, and then they're like, oh, it was just a dream, and I'm like, okay, so I read 10 pages of what? Nothing. It didn't actually matter for anything. Like in any, or like an episode of like dream sequence, like in the Shadow and Bone season 2, we had a whole episode with a dream sequence, and I was like, I hate this.
Yeah, I just watched a Buffy episode that's just dreams.
I just hate dream sequences, but I like a dream realm where like stuff can happen there that affects real life,
Dream
and they can
sequences
use
have
it for the plot.
consequences for me to like them. Like, there has to be a consequence to what you're reading, or an outcome for me to care. You can't just dream about it and then be like, oh, well, we woke up and everyone's fine now. You know?
Yeah,
I think it's annoying, and once again, like, to say me the fact that they all have access pretty much to this. Like, they're all prophetic dreaming now. Perrin has access to the dream world. Egwene has access to the dream world. It's like, how about Perrin doesn't have access to the dream world and he goes and does something else interesting, and Egwene has access to the dream world and she's the only one, which makes her perspective more unique in that regard. Like, why can they all prophetic dream? Like, why do they all do the same things? Why are they all going to Tyr? Like, why did they all do
it is in the prophecies that the Dragon Reborn needs to go to Tyr to get his magical sword.
Yeah, but like, if he needs to do, like, but Perrin doesn't. Perrin doesn't need the magical sword, and all he did,
but they all pulled in by Ran.
Helped the battle in any way.
Like,
because he's the chosen one.
Well, why are they following him around so much? That's the
because
thing.
He's the chosen one.
But they don't have to follow him. He can be chosen one without everyone else.
They do, I've noticed. They all complain, especially Perrin and Matt complain about how obsessed everyone is with Rand whilst also being obsessed with Rand.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the character work is lost on me a little bit, is because I don't feel any motivations why they should all care so much about Rand. I don't understand. There wasn't enough to make me feel that. And so every time they talk about it, I'm just like, but why though? Like, what are you doing? And why are you so in love with him? And even their character work with each other. The girls were a little bit better this time, but Matt and Tom and Moraine, none of them really interacted in a way that made me believe that they even gave a crap about being around one another. Like, why don't you go, Perrin go off with all of his wolves, and Moraine can go off and do her thing, and they can go be accepted? And like, why do we care about one another at all?
Well, it's just funny. I'm sorry, when you said Perrin, I was just thinking of a random scene when he went and like did blacksmith things, and I was just like, okay.
I actually enjoyed that.
No, I hated it.
I did enjoy that element of Perrin's character in this, kind of being like, I am sick of this and this is not what I want to be and I didn't sign up for this, so I need to kind of reclaim a bit of who I actually am instead of what everything is making me out to be. So I definitely enjoyed that element of his character a little bit in this. And I can't remember what I was going to say.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you with my Perrin and blacksmith talk.
I can't hold two thoughts in my brain at once.
A guy from the sticks.
I think that's the thing as well. Like, I understand, because this happens all the time, obviously, in series like this, where you have a chosen one character, where you follow them as they are a normal person, and that makes them relatable, and like, you cheer for them because they're just like you, they're just a normal person. With Rand, I feel like it's annoying. Like, when everybody's like, oh my god, he's the Dragon Reborn, I'm like, who the fuck does he think he is? Like, he's just some like guy from some backwater farm in the middle of nowhere that nobody cares about.
Yep.
But like, normally, like, I'm rooting for the underdog, and I'm like, yeah, the common person is just getting raised up, and in this I'm like, but no.
It's just because Rand is so bratty. And I guess it's a bit with like what Mel said, like about them being so teenagey, that they're just complaining and bratty and all the time.
I think it's not the characters that are a problem. It's not the behavior that's a problem. It's not the fact that they all care about Rand. It's the repetitiveness of the writing that's an issue. So it's not the characters or the motivations. It's the writing that's the problem. So, like, if somebody else wrote it, for example, in a different way, then I wouldn't have an issue with it. It's just the repetitiveness of the way that it's been written.
Yeah, because you can have a relatable teenage character and you can have a really freaking annoying teenage character too. And I think that the repetitiveness, like you said, we're hammering it over and over and over on the same topics, that it leans into the annoying side rather than the relatable side.
I feel like the reason why I'm rating this so much higher than like you and Casa, for example, is that I kind of just it has a lot. It feels a lot like classic fantasy. Like I hate classic fantasy as well. There's like this is kind of a middle ground where it's not too bad because it's like coming out of classic fantasy into more modern fantasy, but so much of it is just classic fantasy. Like teenagers weren't well developed in classic fantasy. They were they were annoying. Like romance wasn't well developed in classic fantasy. It was just like, and then they fell in love and got married, and you're just supposed to believe it. So like I'm kind of rolling with that and not looking too deep into that.
I think for me though, it's just it hits so many of my like anti-buzzwords. We do a crap ton of travel. We move from place to place just to learn something and then move on to something else. It's very episodic and it's very adventure story. And I have learned within the last year, honestly, it's not something that I've always known, that I really hate those formulaic adventure stories. And that is very much so what this feels like, at least right now. And I am seriously struggling with that.
Yeah, it's like how
I bad.
It's not your fault. I wanted to continue to read it. It's my fault.
I love classic like fantasy. Like that is one of the reasons I fell in love with fantasy. Like when I was like a kid, I had like a Norwegian fantasy series I read, and it's like literally they're the chosen one. They travel from place to place. They're going to fulfill a prophecy. And it's like still one of my favorites to this day. And it's like that made me fall in love with fantasy in the first place. So every time I read anything similar to that, I'm like, I feel like I'm home. I know it's stupid, but I'm just like, I love a chosen one. Stupid. And it's just like,
for me, it's just the writing of classic fantasy. I don't mind the stories. It's just in modern fantasy, you have more of a connection to the character that I really like, and like they're written in a more emotive way that brings you closer to the character. Whereas classic fantasy tends to be more like you're being told a story of somebody who is not your friend. It's just like a hero character. So I struggle. All of my 5-star books are books that I'm more emotionally invested in. And I'm just not emotionally invested in this because of the writing style of classic fantasy.
I feel like there's always a point in the series where I hate all the characters, but then in the end I just like feel like they're all my best friends because you spend so long with them.
I remembered what I wanted to say earlier now. It was about Rand's perspective and the lack of it. I appreciated it because it wasn't there, but at the same point, like it still was the same thing with book 2 where it's like other people are doing interesting things and I feel like their perspective would be valid. Rand is not with everybody else in this, so therefore his perspective is kind of valid because he's not with everybody else, so he's doing something different to everybody else and we just don't get his perspective at all. We get everybody else's, and it's that lack of balance and perspectives. Like book 2 is too Rand heavy, book 3 has no Rand at all. And I feel like I need some sort of like actual balance between them. Although I did much prefer this without Rand's perspective. It just doesn't make sense to me that you would go from this book is all Rand to this book has no Rand at all.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of like in these 3 first one we have like, you know, like a final battle thingy. And I think like these 3 first battles are like super weird. And I just feel like they're weird battles. I'm just like, what is going on?
It's like, I'm supposed to have an epic conclusion. Here you go. But it doesn't have any bearing on anything. Like if you didn't know it and you don't remember it, you wouldn't necessarily need it.
I feel like I would appreciate the battles more if every book was defeating one of the Forsaken, or if it was made clear. Like I feel like, because I said when we did the first live show that I feel like J.K. Rowling has read The Wheel of Time. I'm wondering if it's like a Horcrux kind of system, like you have to defeat him so many times for him to actually be dead. Like you have to kill Voldemort. Sorry, spoilers for Harry Potter if anyone cares. You have to kill him 7 times for him to be dead because of all of the bits that he's like split off. I'm wondering if it's that kind of deal. Because like if not, like I would appreciate it if it was like we kill every one of the Forsaken, because that would be cool because they're all different. Like they all specialize in different things.
It would also make more sense. It's like if it was 12 books, I mean, they did this more than 12, but like if it was 12 books, it was 1 Forsaken for each book.
Yeah, and then the one book for the bad guy.
Yeah, but
and while you're killing the Forsaken, the bad guy's growing in strength and like escaping from his prison.
But what I was going to say is that some of the endings later, I feel like, are just much better than these. Because I was thinking always like when I was in the beginning, it went so slow, like in these, and then I feel like the ending smashes later a lot. So I feel like that makes up for it. But I might be the only one.
He's not just traveling from the mountains to Tyr, though. He's like sowing chaos in his wake. Like he's marrying 25 people as he goes.
No, he's not doing it. It's just that they feel like they need to get married because he's close by.
Yeah, I know, but like that would be cool to see, like as it's happening, especially because he's just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a lot. I definitely don't want it to be a lot because I don't like him that much, but like just a little bit. We did have just like a couple of paragraphs from his perspective, but I feel like a few chapters just like spaced out just to make it more balanced.
Do you guys like the friendship between Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine? Because it's one of my favorites.
The friendship between Egwene and Nynaeve. They hate each other.
No, they love each other. They're like sisters. They scramble all the time.
I don't feel that though. And I don't know why it is, but like somebody said something earlier about them all feeling like siblings. And I'm like, but I don't, because I don't get the vibe that they would do literally anything for each other. I feel like it's just something they feel like they're supposed to do, not that they actually give a crap about the other person.
I feel like they care about each other deeply.
I feel like they're like sisters in the way that they've known each other their entire lives, but they have absolutely no choice in that. And if they did, then they would not talk to each other at all.
I do think it's a bit cool that
though. I think part of that problem, though, is because they are all very separate as a general rule. Like, you've got the 3 women that stay together, and you've got the boys that stay together, and you've got Lana and Moraine that stay together. But we don't get a whole lot of the group together interacting, learning about each other, learning about their lives and their histories and how that they all got to know each other. And so I don't buy it because I have no indication of what their history even looked like to care.
I agree with Nynaeve as well, actually.
Oh, she like literally every time she talks, I just want to be like, please stop. You're better when you don't.
Yeah, which is why I appreciated Egwene's perspective the most in this book. That was my favorite perspective, partially because we have the magic school setting. And I do think in terms of character progression, I think the girls are growing the most in terms of power. Like, I feel them growing more from like village girls into like Aes Sedai.
Yeah, I can see
more than anybody else, especially Rand. Like, I feel like Rand is still just frolicking around and doing.
He's frolicking through fiction.
He is frolicking. I agree with this, though. I feel like a lot of the annoying stuff about Nynaeve is because she feels like she's on a high horse, and it seems to be to remind us that she's not their like equal, which is really annoying.
But we know that she doesn't. Is the problem. Like, I don't need to be told this. I need her to come down a peg because she's my least favorite character. I find she's the worst. And I think all of the girls are all of the characters are very stubborn. But Nynaeve is the worst because she's used to being older and respected, but she's not in that role anymore.
But I don't know. I got the impression that she wasn't that much older than them. Like, she acts like she's 40 and has all of this moral superiority, but I got the impression that they were like 17 and she was like 23. That's not...
yeah, she's 25 and they're 18, I think.
So that's not that moral superiority, that moral high horse that just keeps hammering. It's like, okay, at some point, someone needs some character development. I don't care where you give it to me, but you got to put it in there somewhere, and we are not getting it.
I think the thing with the main characters from Two Rivers, how is Elaine more humble than any peasant from Two Rivers?
Because they get stubborn from Two Rivers.
But she's a princess, and she's actually reasonable. If somebody like critiques her, she's like, yeah, you know what, you're right. Whereas if somebody critiques Nynaeve, she digs her heels in and she's like, I'm actually better than anybody here, even though I've lived in a village my entire life.
I actually was thinking a bit about the TV show just now, where I was afraid that Nynaeve would be like super like annoying, but I feel like they made her how she is, but without like it feeling super annoying. So I actually
Mm.
enjoyed her a lot there. But I was
Yeah, I
saying
like
that the
show.
date for the TV show came for like it's the 1st September, the second season. Are you
Oh,
guys
is that
gonna
when it
watch?
is? I know that it was a trailer, but like I will watch it, but I don't care about. I never watch trailers or anything because it's not.
No, I didn't watch the trailer either. I just the date was announced, and I'm like, I was gonna say, are you gonna watch it? That was what I was asking.
I will be watching it.
I will. Yeah. I just, I think for me, all of these books, I just need it to expand for something. And the part of that is probably my own fault because you hear about Wheel of Time having some of the best magic systems ever written, some of the best worlds ever written, some of the best like expansiveness, and you hear about that constantly. And I'm like, okay, I am 3 books and like 3,000 pages in at this point, and I don't feel like we've gotten any development in world, in magic, in characters, nothing. I feel very surface level to everything.
Have
And
you read
that's
Game of Thrones?
frustrating. Mm-mm.
Game of Thrones is also a slog. Like Game of Thrones is also quite painful to read in parts. Because when I was reading this, I was comparing it to Game of Thrones, and I was like, you know what, I do really like Game of Thrones, but that is also like painful to read in parts where it just takes forever. And I kind of wish that I was able to read Game of Thrones without the lens of watching the show, because the show I feel builds so much more investment than the writing style of the books does.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure I would have been as into it if I didn't have if I wasn't able to make it come alive in my head through watching like 5 seasons of the show before I started the books.
Yeah. I think it just boils down to the fact that nothing ever needs to be this long. And so there's a lot of filler in there.
Vanessa said they're 20. It's the boys that are 20. The girls are 18. Apart from 19. Okay. 25.
That's good to know. I do like the Aiel. I want to know more about them. But again, it's just, and part of it's just because we've just been briefly introduced to them. I'm assuming that we'll get there. But we're getting little character moments and little magic moments, but they're so overshadowed by everything else that if that doesn't change, I'm not going to handle finishing it. Like, I'm going to need something. But I feel like I'm slightly the unpopular opinion.
We had, I asked for spoiler questions in the Discord in case maybe people would make it. So I had 3 questions. So the first one was, what do you think about Aiel and the culture and Robert Jordan's world building? We talked a bit about it, but do you guys have any thoughts on the Aiel so far?
I like them. That's all I can really say about them so far. Mm-hmm. I feel like they've only really come to a part where they're actually really prominent at all, and they're still like super minor in comparison to everything else that's going on at this moment. They are definitely going to come forward though, because they're the Dragon's people, so now they're going to, and they're leaving the Waste now. So they are going to be more present at the forefront going forward, I think. But at the minute, I just kind of like, I liked them.
I feel like there was a lot of like thrown out world building. I was like, if I like read this for the first time, I wouldn't understand. And I think because they were talking about like clans and going to like Rodian and going like again first sisters and second sisters, spare sisters and all that. And I was just like, this is a lot of information at once. You're not going to understand what any of this means until later. I felt like because they were just throwing out a lot of words, and even our main characters were confused. So I feel like after a while, you really get to know them better. But we were introduced to one of my favorite characters from the Aiel, but we didn't really actually talk to her a lot. So I just recognized the name. I was like, oh. So that's exciting. Yeah, I didn't even remember that she was here this early, actually. I thought she came much later. But yeah.
It's such a secretive group of people in the world so far. Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be cool to learn more about them.
Even though
I can't do this. This is the problem.
Like, no, you don't.
I can't. I cannot do this. I don't have the trust in any author to take 14 books for me to give a crap. Like,
you can't ask someone to read 13,000 pages of something that they don't like because the last 1,000 pages might be all right. Like, nobody's going to do that.
I can't.
Except us.
And that's the thing is I feel like it doesn't need to be 14 books. I think that's my biggest problem is there's no reason for it to be as long as it. Not so far. I have not seen any reason. You could have cut a solid half of every book that we've had so far, and it all would have just been repetitive squabbling and world building that we've already heard 13 times before. And that's where I think I'm struggling a little bit. Sorry, I did not mean to attack you. I just was like, that was not to you directly. But
the thing where it says it's interesting to hear all the prejudices about them and see them actually defy a lot of them in their actions whenever the characters run into them. I thought that was interesting because a lot of people are scared of them, but any like the notion that I have of them is that they're peaceful. And
they're definitely warriors.
Scared of them and thinks that they're like really aggressive.
I think it was because they came over the wall to like kill one dude, and then it was like a whole war, like their war. But then when they actually killed the dude they wanted to kill, they fucked off. So like they have the memory of them invading, because I think they wanted revenge because that person, what was it, took down a tree or something that was holy to them or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, no,
it was something. Yeah.
Also, isn't there a war? They went to war with somebody.
Camelin. It was one of the big places.
Yeah.
But then like they kind of invaded. That's what people are scared of because of the Aiel war.
But also, yeah, because wasn't Rand born during the war?
Yeah. Like in the end.
Sisters. And they do have like trained warriors, but because they keep to themselves, I feel like they seem like a very peaceful like community, when realistically they're maybe not. But I mean, they seem all right so far. They remind me of someone, and I can't think who it is. Like a group in something else.
Yeah, I think they definitely inspire. Like, also they live in a desert, so I feel like I think they are inspired by like need to be inspired by some cultures that just haven't looked up like who or what. So yeah. But
I do have a theory for the series that I don't know. I don't know if it's obvious or whether like I'm reading too much into it.
Okay.
But I feel like, you know how Matt came back and he was like, when they were getting rid of the connection to the knife, he was talking about Manatharan and like ancient battles and the Aes Sedai, and the Amelin seat was like, oh, he just said this thing. I feel like there's something shifty going on there to start off with the way she was like, oh no, he just said this, because they were talking about how the Aes Sedai were allies in Manatharan, because Egwene said like, oh, I thought they were allies, and she was like, oh yeah, they were, but that doesn't mean that this individual man like doesn't have prejudice. I think that because Matt blew the horn, and because the horn raises Arthur Hawkwing's armies, and the Amelin, I think, said to him that he will have control of the armies until he dies. I think that he's now tied to Arthur Hawkwing. So that's the reason why he's having like flashbacks and like speaks in the old language and stuff. And why, like, because Arthur Hawkwing, if he was around at the time of Aes Sedai, would know what actually happened at that battle. And I feel like maybe something was going on with the Aes Sedai that wasn't the treaty that everyone thought. But then Manatharan had a queen, or like maybe a king and a queen that was Aes Sedai as well. So I don't know about that, but I definitely feel like he's... But then I wanted to go back, but I couldn't, obviously, because of how much we've read. I wanted to figure out if there was any tie to Arthur Hawkwing and having really good luck. Because all I remembered about him is that he was a really... not a good king. Oh, something else that supports that is that Nynaeve keeps dreaming about Matt and the Sean Chan, but she keeps saying that the Sean Chan that she's dreaming about is because of nightmares, because of what happened to her. And she's like, oh, I had this dream and Matt did this terrible thing and then Sean Chan, but that's probably just a nightmare. No, it's because he's Arthur Hawkwing, or he's tied to Arthur Hawkwing, and the Sean Chan are the first of Arthur Hawkwing's armies that were sent away to create their own kingdom, which is why I think that he's connected to them as well.
It's a fair theory. I don't know what else to say.
I think that you have great theories. I am listening and absorbing.
So we can go to the next question. It was, dreams are an important part of the Wheel of Time storyline, enough to include a dream world. Talon Ariad? I literally cannot say that. Which dream sequence did you find the most interesting, confusing, disturbing? Are the dreams alternative realities, potential future outcomes, or visions to help hurt characters? I mean, we talked a bit about it earlier, though, but any thoughts?
That was a long question. Repeat.
That was a really long question. We can do, like, which dream sequence did you find the most interesting, confusing, disturbing? I think my favorite part was, like, Egwene's acceptance thing. That was, like, the most interesting one.
And
Yeah.
also, like, the thing, well, tying into what I just said about how she's dreaming about Matt and the Sean-chan is also something that I'm finding interesting. Because I think it does tie into that theory, even though she's discarding it as, like, trauma dreams.
Yeah. But what was Egwene's first dream? Was that when she was together with Rand?
Oh my
Am I
god,
just like,
what, when she did the trials?
yeah, like what was her dreams again? I think the last one was that she was Armelin's seat and she was with the dude, Elaine's brother.
What?
Mhm.
Galad? Or is it Galad or Gawain? It's one I actually mix them up all the time
I
because I
think
literally have them.
I think it's Galad. I think Gawain's the one that Elaine likes, and Galad's the one that she doesn't.
So Gawain likes the one that Elaine doesn't like.
What? Egwene likes the one that Elaine doesn't like, which is Galad.
Yeah. But what
So,
was like the
yeah.
middle dream? Sorry, I didn't mean to show you guys my finger.
I think one is that she's got a baby with Rand called Joya.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
the same as the Black Aja. And then, yeah. And then one is where she's the Amelin seat and she's Green Aja, so she's got multiple warders.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember what the third one is.
The third one was that she was Amelin's seat.
No, but the third one is in, we said what two are, and I can't remember what the other one is, which would be the middle one.
Yeah, but like that actually annoyed me because I was like really into it and now I cannot remember.
I don't remember either.
The middle one was when he was trapped on a pillar. They were both with. Oh yeah, it was. They were all with Ran, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They were all about Ran and how she had to like let him go.
I love the sequence when she was the Amelin seat. Yes. And also it calls back to how, I can't remember what I said about the other one. But like Egwene and Nynaeve are obviously two of the most powerful Aes Sedai, so one of them I assume is going to become the Amelin seat eventually. I always felt like it was going to be Nynaeve, but I'm thinking maybe Nynaeve gives it all up for Lan. Oh, but then I thought that Lan maybe died, so. But I feel like some of these are still possible because I feel like Egwene can still become the Amelin seat. That is the future that could still be something that comes true for her.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question was: Are dreams alternative realities, potential future outcomes, or wishing to help her characters? But we kind of already said what we hope, so we can't answer that.
I do think that I don't really like the dream stuff because I don't like things that are metaphorical. It's like why I don't like magical realism and like fabulism. It's because my brain doesn't process like metaphor and symbology very well in that regard. So if I can't match it contextually in my brain just doesn't retain it. So when Min is saying to Perrin, you're going to meet a hawk and something, like because it's speaking in code, I'm not retaining that information. So I'm not a big fan of the prophetic dream sequences because they are so like, you know, I don't know what word, you know what I mean? Like it's symbology. It's not like they're talking around it. It's not, it's like imagery instead of to like mask the reality thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big fan of dream sequences just in general because of that. It's too ambiguous and it just, my brain doesn't like it.
I do think that like the dream world that Robert created, like at first I didn't like it, but then it became like one of my favorite things about the series because I think right now it seems like one thing, but I think you develop it really well. Like I was actually like really invested in the dream world after a while like I'm a person who doesn't like dream worlds. So yeah.
That is true. Jordan just keep telling you. But when I get One Piece, so like when we discovered that the girl, as she calls Zareen, was going to be the Falcon part of the dream, I then kind of wanted to go back to the prophecy to see, like, because when you've got one piece, to see if you can figure out what the other pieces are. And I feel like there's just a lot of prophecy in this series. And some of it, like, I feel like the one that Egwene discarded as being chalking up to nightmares is the one that I feel is a theory, where the ones where she's literally like, Rand is going to do this, this, and this is completely going over my head. And that's literally like the ones that are directly happening and not even that cryptic.
Yeah, there's a lot of dream sequences going on.
I don't understand Perrin's dream world with the wolf. I don't understand why the dead wolves are all there. Like, I don't understand it. I don't like things that I don't understand.
Next question. Oh, actually, we talked about this as well, but there's a lot of discussion in 3 books we had so far about the potential powers of Gwen and Needham and Elaine. Who do you find the most compelling as a character in future as a die? You kind of answer this.
My favorite of the 3 is Elaine.
Elaine, yeah, she seems like she's the most. I don't know, not
reasonable.
She was raised with manners because she's a princess.
Go with, but reasonable makes more sense.
It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I don't get why the dead wolves. Obviously, it's just I don't understand why dead wolves would be in a dream world.
I guess it's like their place. So like, for some reason, they're connected to there. I just suddenly got very cold. I'm trying to find a blanket. I'm freezing my ass off.
Yeah, it's just because there's so many of them. It's hard to then find them again. Because I have been tabbing, and a lot of it is prophecy and foreshadowing and stuff.
That's smart.
But then it's like the Art of Hawkwing stuff. I know I will have marked it as history, but across 2,000 pages, I'm not going to be able to find it easily. So
I actually think it's a bit fun because, like, obviously when I read it the first time, I didn't think about the prophecies and stuff that much, and I'm like, eh. And now I'm just like, oh, we actually like talked about this really early, and I think it's cool to like see it come together.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm going to be rereading the Stormlight Archive because the first book makes absolutely no sense. But now that I've 3 books in, like, it will make sense. So I'm excited to reread that and find out. And I do like series like that, but I don't think that with this series being complete, I don't think I would ever reread it.
Do you think like the Stormlight Archive, like they are even longer than Wheel of Time? Do you think that they they are needed to be that long? But like you feel like Wheel of Time is not needed to be that long? Is that a weird question to ask? I don't know.
So the first book literally doesn't make any sense because the characters in the world accept the world as it is. So because they don't question the world, you don't get any answers about the world until later in the series. Do they need to be as long as they are? I feel like you could always argue that no book needs to be 1,000 pages. But I feel like Sanderson does a good job of after the first book was a bit of a slog because without the understanding, like it's a struggle. But the more you get into the series and the more you understand, and like Branderson does have better connection to characters than like Robert Jordan does. So like I care more about the characters as I'm reading it, and his payoffs are amazing. And you don't need to get 10 books into a series for the payoff. You need to be like 2. Like 3 has massive payoff, but you're still starting to get some of it in 2.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me so far is that if there were payoff and things that we were learning, we were building up to a certain thing in each book and getting little snippets as we went. I don't think it would bother me as much because even in like Stormlight at the end of the second book, you do learn a lot about the world and about who people are and what they're doing. And so I
think as well, when you start to figure out things in Stormlight, you get excited and you want to figure out more. So then you want to like keep reading.
I guess maybe it's a weird comparison. It's like I feel like the series are not the same at all because of how they're written and the build up, kind of.
I've just seen Molly said I kind of pitched it almost like loads of different doorways, and one of the doors opens to a wolfy heaven.
That's true though. It's true though. And that's just, I think, again, where I want some more world building because I think that could be really cool and that could be a super interesting idea, but we just get kind of briefly glossed over the important bits. And I'm like, tell me more.
Actually, I think what I'm missing in the world building is actually like I still don't understand in my head. Like they talk about Caemlyn, they talk about Andor, and the other like Merethian and like Tyr, and still I don't understand what these different nations mean. I get Andor is a place, but what doesn't tell me anything, you know?
It doesn't. We're not spending enough time with anything. So then when things are referenced again, you're like, okay, what was that? Because we were only there for like 300 pages and then we moved on for whatever. It's like the Sean Chan, they were such a big part of book 2, but they're only barely referenced in book 3. So by the time they become relevant again, it's going to be like 2 or 3 books before where like it hasn't. Because like for me, he's giving you all the pieces, but he's not giving you them in a way that makes it easy to retain.
Yeah.
Like you're being constantly reminded of things because it's repetitive, but not in a where it's hard to describe, but like you guys know what I mean. Like it's too intermittent, it's too fleeting. We're not referencing
Right.
back to these things. It's like when you learn maths, okay, you don't start doing complex statistics before you've learned basic division.
Yeah.
And he's giving you all the little bits of the maths, but then he's like, okay, no, let's do statistics. But it's so long ago that you did anything that led up to statistics that like
I just feel like
it's like we're trying to cover everything all at once and then go back and explore it, whereas we should be exploring it as we go.
That's like I guess my least favorite part, but like obviously I enjoy a lot, but it's just like it would be like me telling someone that's never went to Earth, and I will be like, yeah, then I went to Norway, then I went to Sweden, then I went to Denmark, then I went to England, and it would be like,
what?
Okay, that tells me nothing. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't tell me anything. Like, no one would know what I was referencing to.
Which is surprising considering you have an author that's going to tell you every stitch of clothing, what color it is, when we don't spend enough time for you to gather what these places look like and feel like, and cultural. And I think that's something that I really like in books, is when you can see distinctive cultures in books. And I feel like we're kind of glossing over those cultures a little bit. And I just want more of it. I don't know if we'll get it eventually or what, but I do think that it's lacking right now.
I feel like Aiel we would get a lot, and I think like what I got from Tear is that they don't like us die. That's what I got.
And then of course you don't, but I can't keep track.
I don't even know. Like they don't like us die, and other places don't like us die. Like who likes us die? That's what I want to know.
Nobody anymore, because Morghese doesn't like them either. So
yeah, because she got mad because she sent it anyway. But yeah, and then of course we know Emma's Field because that's where they come from, and what we know is that they are stubborn. But yeah, I think like, that's where it's lacking, and it's just weird to me when you think about like it's known for its massive world building, but I'm still confused about the places. But like I think I still like, obviously I enjoy it a lot, but like it was just a thought.
What's your favorite book in the series?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's like band together.
I feel like I'm gonna get to the end of this series and I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I loved it so much, because it's like Stockholm syndromed me into loving it. I've just been reading it for so long.
Wait, I need to check like the actual like number in the book, because like they literally just blend together after a while.
I have heard that 4 is like phenomenal.
I'm ready to read 4, and hopefully that be, I'm not going to say it's going to be a drastic turning point, because I don't think that we're going to go from me actively really not liking them to absolutely loving them and them being my favorite thing ever. But I am hoping that it will go from actively disliking to engaged and looking forward to learning more and reading future books. I'm ready to be pleasantly surprised.
Actually, like one of my favorites is the prequel New Spring. I don't know, I just love that. But
I've heard a lot of people say that.
It's about one, isn't it? So like, what's not to like?
I think my favorite is The Gathering Storm, which is the first one by the Sanderson writes.
Ah, okay.
I do feel like I will really like the Sanderson.
But it was just because. But it was just because.
And I panic bought it.
But it was because kind of the events in that one we've been waiting for so long, and when it played out, it was just so good, and I was just like quaking in my bones at that point. But it's like book 12. I'm sorry.
I think something that frustrates me about the maps is that there's random ones in the middle. Like, so I'm never going to be able to reference those again because I didn't mark them.
Yep.
It's like, just keep all the maps at the beginning, please.
Yeah.
I feel like actually the series helped a bit, because I feel like there we went straight to Tarvalon instead of like all the other places. So now like we know that city a lot, like in series. So I feel like they introduced the cities actually better in the TV show a bit, because it made sense that they went straight to Tarvalon, but like in the first book they went to like Camelin. They went to other cities before, but they didn't do that in this series. So I feel like that helped probably a bit. Like Rand at this point haven't been in Tarvalon, but in the series they are in Tarvalon like.
I feel like, because what happens in the series is that they mash 3 books together, but not in at the same time that things from book 3 are in the season 1 of the show. The show hasn't got to the end of book 1 yet either, so it's like put them all side by side instead of like covering 3 books in one series kind of thing.
Someone said, I want to see the map that Tarvalon as a vagina, like it's the vagina city. It's the female empowerment place.
Where?
So it's Vagina City. No, Trabalan just looks like a vagina. If you like,
Go look
look
it
at
up.
the
I
map.
think what was it, Daniel, that had mentioned that a couple of times? And I was
It
like,
is Vagina
now
City.
I can't unsee it.
Is it one of the full page maps that's like
show
Because
it.
it literally looks like a vagina. It is
Where?
probably.
Let me find it. I will screen share.
You screen
I
share the
will screen
vagina.
share. Okay, here. Are you ready, Becca?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Hang on. Vagina City. Like,
Oh yeah.
it does, doesn't it?
Damn.
Yeah.
What?
It literally it has the hole in the exact right place and everything. Maybe, I don't know.
What did we think about the Forsaken and how they were pulling strings?
I think it's sneaky.
It surprised me, but not in a way that I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that's happening." Just in a, I don't know, kind of.
I think the Forsaken are more sneaky than we think. That's what I think.
I am interested in the Forsaken. I just hope that we spend enough time with each of them for me to remember who they are. Because at the minute, I only know Lanfear because she's female, so she's easy to differentiate.
She's pretty, and everyone wants to have sex with her.
I actually quite like her because I do like like an evil queen archetype kind of character, which she has those vibes, like evil dark sorceress vibes.
I can't pick you up over there. Come here. My dog really wants up here, and I cannot reach him at the moment.
I'm confused as to how many are free at the minute. Is it 2 or 3? 2 free. Wow, that was common. 3.
What would you say? I didn't understand.
Is there 2 or 3? Not free. Forsaken. Free. That's why I got confused.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the dude that is like together with Morghese right now. That was a Forsaken there in that city, and then there's Lanfear, and then there's
He's a Forsaken. The advisor.
They said it. I think they said so.
Missed that he was. I thought he was just a dark friend. I didn't realize he was one of the Forsaken. The one that's like Morghese is in love with.
I'm just like,
You're just like, did I spoil something?
Yeah, I was like, did I not spoil something? I think no, because we had her point of view, and he like clearly like magicked her. So like,
I like that.
But I didn't realize he was a Forsaken. I thought he was just a dark friend.
Actually, just like, can we just pretend I didn't say anything? Because now I'm actually confused. I feel like it was obvious, but maybe that scared me.
Something that confused me about that actually is that when he was introduced, when Matt overheard him, he said that he looks like Galad. And I was like, is this why Elaine hates him? So then when later on it was like, oh no, he's only just turned up, I was confused because I thought that I was like, oh no, maybe Galad is bad because maybe this is his dad and like his dad's legitimately evil. But I no. But it was interesting that he compared him. He was like, oh, he looks kind of like Galad. And I thought that was interesting considering Elaine's always like, she doesn't really give a reason for it aside from that he's her half brother, not a full brother. But she's like, I don't like him. Like she never gives any justification aside.
Yeah, I just don't get it.
Like he's not done, and her justification is like, oh, he always does the right thing.
He's such a good guy. I just hate him.
He's such a good guy.
That's her. That's her.
Moraine, and then Lanfear was in the dreams, and Belial was in Tyr. Okay.
Look, someone has.
Who's Ishmael then?
Who?
Who's Ishmael?
I don't know.
I'm confused.
At the end, right at the end,
Nadine
said that she thought that Rand killed Ishmael because of something she'd said about somebody hiding behind a different name and maybe what's he called, Balsamon or something.
I thought Ishmael is the Dark One, isn't it? I thought that they thought that Balsamon was the Dark One, but then they found out that he was not the Dark One.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so I thought that was just his name.
No, but and then yeah, like they thought Ishmael was the Dark One, but
which one is the Dark One?
The Dark One.
So what's the Dark One's name?
Wait, I'm gonna Google it so you guys don't get spoiled. The Dark One, Wheel of Time, name.
Yeah, because I wanted to Google something. I was trying to work out if the Horn of Valir summoned specifically Arthur Hawkwing's armies, but I couldn't Google it because obviously that's so relevant and I'd just be spoiled if I tried.
No, the dark one actually has a complete other name.
Great, of course.
Which is, it's not really a spoiler, but like it's not even Ishmael or it's not Balsamon. So I don't
Ishmael is
know.
the leader of the Dark Aes Sedai.
But
this is
hold
why
on,
I'm getting confused. This is why I'm excited about the Forsaken, providing that I know who is who, because I thought Ishmael was one of them.
I'm even confused. But and maybe that's like one of the things we talk about, that like the important parts we miss, but like we know all the folding of skirts and which clothes they're wearing. You know?
I think his
It has-
action scenes, I don't like his, I mean, I don't like an action scene in general, so it's not anything revolutionary that I don't like Robert Jordan's, but I just find them very difficult to follow. So that last chapter was hard for me, and I know that I didn't retain as much information as I should have because it's just so hard for me to focus on them.
Yeah.
So Ishmael is a Forsaken, okay.
What do you guys think about like Egwene and Nynaeve being sent after like Black Adja when like they are not even like trained Aes Sedai?
I know, I did think that was very weird. I thought that it was very weird that they went into the Amelin seat and the Amelin seat said, the novices don't even know about this, but you get to. Why?
In any other book, I would assume that it was because they wanted them dead and we're just going to send them off on some kind of like goose chase thing. But in this one, I think it's just plot advice.
Yeah, but I was like, I like that they go on hunting them because it makes them being able to get something to do. But I was sitting there like, why are they getting this task? But I guess it's because you can't trust anyone else. But why would you trust them? They could be evil for all she knows.
Especially because they've just been dragged back there and they were being punished for bad behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just a bit like, when I was thinking about like, why are like these like kids that like have been training there for like a week being sent off to like full trained Aes Sedai? It seems very dangerous for them.
Moraine's getting more Gandalf-y as well. Like,
Mhm.
where she'll like somebody ask her a question and she just flies off the handle and starts screaming. Right.
That's funny.
I'm just racing my audio line.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Rebecca asked somewhere about the horn. I think it's because it's Arthur Hawkwing. I think you are connected to Arthur Hawkwing, and Arthur Hawkwing can only inhabit one person at once, and he has to call his own armies, and that's why it's only one person at once.
It seems like that Matt like now can talk like some of the old language and stuff. So it seems like he got like some kind of skills, some memories maybe from the horn.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like he started to talk like weird languages because of the like dagger as well.
Dagger,
so like, did he get abilities from the dagger and the horn?
But the old language, she was talking about Manetheren. Like he was in that battle, and I don't think that ties to the dagger. Although I could be wrong about that. It's a while since we've heard about the place that the dagger was from.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what I was going to say about it. It was the luck that Matt has. Arthur Hawkwing could have potentially been very lucky because everybody's like, oh, he was a great king. Like, because we've had this discussion before where I thought he was a good guy, but actually some people didn't like him. And it's because he was a good king in terms of like he united everyone. So there could have been a lot of luck involved with that, because throughout the course of this book, we discover that Matt's luck doesn't just extend to gambling. It's like finding the people that he's looking for when he needs to find them and that kind of thing. So it's potentially the reason why Arthur Hawkwing is the one king that everyone's like, oh, he was great, he did so much, is because he was unnaturally lucky and not because he actually was.
That makes sense.
A great king.
Yeah.
Like so much happened, like he did so much. He's tied to so much. He has all of the legendary warriors. He united a bunch of people. He established his kingdom across the seas. And they're the things that I can think of off the top of my head.
I hope you're right, because otherwise it's going to feel like a plot device. Like,
I feel like Becca's like too smart to read books with because she thinks about so many stuff. Like I read the books and she thinks more
I'm
than
just
me.
like, what? Okay,
so
cool.
you know how in the last live show I said I don't understand why the Sean Chan are bad because they're Arthur Hawkwing's armies and Arthur Hawkwing's supposed to be good, and you guys were all like, oh well, he's not necessarily good, he's just successful. That ties to Matt saying something weird about the Aes Sedai and Egwene saying, why would he say that, even though she didn't understand it? And the Amlin saying, oh, well, just because they were allies in Manetheren doesn't mean that the individual people liked them. Because the Seanchan harnessed the Aes Sedai as weapons, maybe that's because Arthur Hawkwing actually hated them.
I mean, it seems like there's generally just a lot of hate towards Aes Sedai. Considering that, like, the book is, like, supposed to be, like, what's it called? A patriarchy? I can't say words. You know what I mean? Like, the woman that's supposed to be in power. Considering it's supposed to be a book that a woman's supposed to be in power, there's a lot of people that hate the woman in power. But yeah.
And Matt has assumed both characters of the dagger and horn. Yeah, that would be cool.
Which way would it go? I mean, it's a classic fantasy, so.
I could see the luck being channeling for sure.
That's true.
I feel like of a lot of the things you guys say, there's a lot of things you're very correct about, like about the writing and stuff. But I feel like there are some stuff that is coming that you guys are not seeing, even though it is a classical fantasy. So I hope you will enjoy that.
Hopefully
even though you might not enjoy like the writing, which is fine. Because I even don't enjoy the writing.
I'm still open-minded. Like, we haven't hit the point yet. Once we hit the point where I'm no longer open-minded, I love you, Sandra, but I may not be here anymore. But for the moment, I'm still open-minded moving into the next book. I'm going to need it to do something a little bit different than what we've seen in the first 3 for me to continue to love them.
I feel like I've heard that the beauty of this is in the details. The reason why I'm still invested is because of the hardcore Wheel of Time fan who probably will be watching this back later, so hi, who said that they wanted me specifically to read these books for a long time. And if they want me specifically to read these books for a long time, it's because the details are well laid out. That carry through to the end of the series. So that's why I'm in it, because that's my favorite thing. That's why I love Sanderson so much.
I agree with that.
So it's that one person as me.
If they let you down, they are banned forever.
And also, like I always said, like we know that Sanderson does that really, really well, like lays the details. We know that he's been a lifelong fan of Wheel of Time, and we know that he was the person who finished the series, which makes me believe that is true. Like that there's details, and like I don't feel like Robert Jordan's execution is great, but I think that the concept of the series as a whole is good. And I think that it's the classic fantasy lean to it that's going to make this. So like this will probably never be one of my favorite series ever, because it does lean so classic fantasy, and that is just not a start. Like I DNF'd Lord of the Rings. I don't like the Earthsea series, because I don't like classic fantasy. I get the impression that he likes me.
I
think my struggle is too, in part because I know someone that loved the series when they read it originally and have now since reread the first 3 books and were like, I don't really understand where my love came from. And so I'm like, oh, that's slightly terrifying.
But like I said, it might just be so long because like completely different series, and I do actually really like these series, but when I think of like Throne of Glass, which is like an 8-9 book series, it's my favorite thing when I think about it is just how long I was with the characters as they grew. So it's not like that I do like the plot, and I like a lot about that series, but I always think when I think about it, the first thing I think of is like how long I was with the characters as they grew, and that is obviously going to happen in this series just because it's so long. We're going to spend so much time in it.
And that's what Sandra keeps saying too. I feel like I know them so well. I love these characters. I've been with them for so long. And I'm just waiting to get to the point where I feel that way about them, because there are plenty of characters in fantasy and shows and whatever that I'm like, you watch them and you're like, these people are so freaking annoying. Why do I love them so much? And then you realize it's because you spend so much time with them. I'm hopeful that that's the way that I will feel, but I just need them to develop more, I think. And for me to see that natural progression of them growing and learning and doing. And then I think I will be much more attached to them when that happens.
I think we're at a point now where like they're starting to grow in terms of like they are being more proactive with the plot. True. And like the girls are growing in strength as they are actually physically learning, but their personalities aren't growing as quickly as I would like. especially as I said, how a lot of them are stubborn, and all of them, like a lot of the Two Rivers characters have an arrogance about them that to me doesn't make any sense with the way that they've been thrown into the world, because with the sheltered existence that they've had, where like, yeah, Nynaeve was the wisdom of a small village, not the world. So isn't going out into the world and seeing like all of these other much bigger cultures like humbling? Like, why isn't she questioning her perspective?
Not to her.
Like,
Not to her.
acknowledging that her perspective is very small. Like, they're all very proud of where they come from, but a lot of them do acknowledge, like, I'm from this small village, and this, like, they walk into a city and they're like shook by how big and like busy everything is. But like, then you have characters like Nynaeve who just like aren't growing in that regard.
Yeah. I feel like, though, for me, it seems like he has very much so got his archetypes in place, and each character is supposed to represent a certain thing in a certain archetype, and they are not moving away from their archetype in order to grow. Does that make sense? So I'm hopeful that will change.
I see what you're saying, Tammy, but I feel like Perrin is also very stubborn, but without the arrogance that Nynaeve has.
I agree with that.
She, because of her position of being the wisdom of the town, and this is the thing as well that I think people are misconstruing in the chat, like, just because we say we don't like something doesn't mean that they're not justified in behaving that way. Nynaeve, it makes sense that Nynaeve would look down upon people because she's used to being better than everyone, but that doesn't mean that I have to like her because of the way that she's treating other people. Like, that's the difference. But like, I feel like she has an element of like belittling people that Perrin doesn't, where they're both very stubborn characters. And it's like, Matt is also, all of them are very stubborn from Two Rivers. Matt's very stubborn, and while he's one of my favorite perspectives in this book, he does the thing where like he blames all of his problems on everyone else and won't accept any responsibilities.
I feel like one thing that was unrelated to what you just said is that when you think about when this came out, like what, in 1991, was it? 1989, something like that. I don't know like what the fantasy market was back then because I wasn't alive, but obviously it was like very different landscape. And obviously like that doesn't mean we have to like it now, but I feel like if we read it when it was released, we wouldn't be able to compare it to the fantasy that we has today. So I feel like the love that has been there for a long time can definitely be there because they read it when they grew up. So they they have a totally different feeling towards it in a way. But we kind of have like a modern lens to it. So we will compare it to the stuff we have now.
How it's very interesting that this series is reflective of the series that Robert Jordan was reading growing up, because if you put this in a timeline, it's much closer to Game of Thrones and the Realm of the Eldlings than it is to like Earthsea and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But in terms of the writing style, it is very like, it leans more towards Earthsea to me than it does towards Game of Thrones. And that kind of thing, even though realistically between, I think, the Realm of the Eldlings and Game of Thrones, both were started in 96 and this was 1990. So there's really not that much difference in between them at all.
But I guess Robin Hobb and like George R. Martin and like Robert Jordan were all like, I don't know how old they are, but like they're maybe as old as each other, like within the same like maybe decades. So like they would maybe read the same books growing up.
I don't know how old Robert Jordan was when but like if you think in ages of them, no, George R. R. Martin and Robin Hobb aren't young. And I don't know how old Robert Jordan was when he died, and I don't know when he died. Was it like 10
also like Ursula was also like ish around their age, like ish. I don't know. I'm not gonna Google when they were born, but it's like it makes sense that when they grow up they would read ish the same kind of books. Like when we grow up now, we're not all the same age, but we read ish the same books. So that will influence you. So like I guess if you don't like that style, like I personally think Lord of the Rings is impossible to read. I love it, but I don't understand like 50% of what I read in them. But I love Earthsea. I love it. So it's like, and that's just like a little jump up, but I can see like Earthsea being very close to Lord of the Rings and within like the style. And I'm like,
yeah.
I do see a lot of comparison between this and Earthsea, and that a lot feels very moralistic. Like I feel like if this was written now, it would really lean into the struggle with the darkness a lot more, and you'd see a lot more of that. Whereas I feel like, obviously I can't say for sure right now, but I think because of it leaning more towards classic fantasy and style, that Rand's never going to tip like truly dark. and then come back from it, he's going to maybe have a moment where he questions himself, but always pull back, because that's what the Chosen One did back in 1990. Like, they wouldn't go to the dark side because that would make them unrelatable, even though realistically it actually makes them less like characters and more like real people. But that's just not how stories and
how it was written
in the day. Yeah.
Martin
and Jordan were born the same year.
Hobbs 5 years younger.
Oh, look at people just have just know shit.
Hobbs 5 years younger, so still very similar.
Yeah, but still, they would be reading each the same books, you know.
It's interesting because I do see influence in like how things that are slightly similar between this and Game of Thrones, and like Perrin and Fitz.
Yeah, yeah, I can see Perrin and Fitz being similar. I agree with Marley. Like, the character works better.
Yeah.
Even though I actually found
extremely slow too, and doesn't
very slow.
Give you all of that information. You have to really work for it. But I think the difference between Hobb and Jordan for me at the moment is that the character work, love them or hate them, is so strong in Hobb. Even if you can't stand them, like, you have emotions toward them. Whereas for the most part, I'm either annoyed or I don't care at the current character work we've got.
I feel like they write very differently, though. I actually think that Jordan is easier to read.
Agreed with that.
But he uses too many words with folded skirts and folds hands over breasts and all that. While like Robin Hobb, I need to read like super slowly because it's just like words. It is really. I mean,
there was a 400-page travel scene of literally just walking in Royal Assassin.
Hey, it's one of my favorites, don't?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of walking, Sandra.
I like walking.
Pages of walking and being sad in Ace Assassin's Quest right at the beginning. It's painful to read, but I still give it 5 stars.
Yeah.
My favorite is still number 2, Royal Assassin. It's like my favorite still, but I haven't finished
all of them.
Yeah, I haven't finished the last ones.
Me either. I'm a chicken butt.
Oh, my favorite is Ship of Destiny.
That's a good one too.
It's not even a Fitz book.
How dare you? But
I know.
Yeah.
Anything else on the Dragon Reborn?
I don't know. So. I think that's my main point.
I feel like even if we sound negative, we don't mean to be negative. Like, I generally really like this series, but I do think it's interesting to hear different perspectives. Yeah.
I think part
I
of
also feel like if I watched a live show of people saying how much they hated Crescent City and gave it 1 star, I wouldn't take it personally because it's a book.
Yeah.
But
and it's part of the fun is to just hear everybody's different opinions and what they think about things. It's not ever a personal attack because I love that people love it. I wish I was one of you. That's more me being sad that I'm not the one absolutely loving it. So
I think it's interesting to hear why people don't like it. Like, I feel like this, and then I think it's interesting to hear other perspectives. That's why I'm sitting here asking so many questions.
Because it's so like old as well. Like, you can still love something. Like I just said, like I hated the walking sequence in Assassin's Quest, and I still gave it 5 stars. Like just because like you can point out a negative in something and say, yeah, but I still loved it. Like I gave this book 4 stars, but I didn't love everything about it, and there's definitely flaws, especially in the writing.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean that I hated it. You can see the flaws in things that you love.
And it's important to just gonna blanket statement this to be respectful when we're discussing things. That's important. Makes everyone feel safe, like they're able to talk about the book and have fun. Get more context out of discussions from these lives. Yeah, it's always helpful. It's a good refresher. Alrighty. Well, I think that's all I had. Sandra, Becca, do you have anything else?
I don't think so. My main takeaway from this was the main thing I was excited to talk about was Matt being after Hogwarts. That's it. That's all.
That's all the thing that mattered.
Well, remind me of that though, because I'm really bad at remembering my predictions, so that'll actually come true in 2 books, and I won't remember whether it was ever a thought that I ever had. So, when it does happen, please remind me that.
I came into this thinking The Great Hunt and The Dragon Reborn was completely the same, and then Becca was like, "But this and this and this," and I'm like, maybe they weren't.
I think it's because like you went into this with a lens of like already loving the series, where I was like, I didn't really like The Great Hunt very much, and everything that the main points that I pointed out that I didn't like about The Great Hunt were completely fixed in this. So like obviously it's more noticeable to me when there was stuff that I disliked so much that I know that was like just fixed. Like it's like Robert Jordan knew that it's like how in the first book I said I hated the end of it. I thought it was rushed and like everyone seemed to pivot and the pacing was so much more accelerated. And then everyone in the comments was like, oh yeah, no, he knows that. Like he knew that happened. So like he's aware of his own flaws, to be fair.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Actually, I'm kind of scared of the next book. I have no idea what happens in that one. I think I remember ish the end, but I don't remember if that was in that one or the 5th book.
I'm gonna try. I haven't been like tandem reading these, and I may do that for the next one. Try to section it out like Becca's been doing because it's so long. Like I feel like it's gonna be easy for me to put it down, pick it up, put it down, and pick it up, and not remember as much.
I am absolutely gonna need to be strict with the sectioning of the next book because I'm in Colorado for a week in July, and I'm like
traveling.
But the live's not till August. We're good, right?
Yeah, but
I don't think I told you guys this, but I'm listening to the audiobook with like Erica, my best friend, and she has never read them before.
Ooh.
So we listen to them together. So I think it's very interesting to see like what she thinks of things happening because she like obviously has no thing, but she loves them. She's given them all like 5 stars.
I'm about to order book 4 right now while we're talking because I don't have it. I have 1, 2, 3, and 12 because for some reason 12 was like out of print and freaked me out and I panicked and I bought it.
So at least you're here to book 12 then. That's what I'm hearing.
I panic bought.
I'm hearing that you're at least here to book 12. After that, you go.
I make no commitments, ma'am.
Is that when Sanderson takes over at book 13 as well? So like you're in it.
No, it's not 12. It's 12, 13, 14.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think. Okay, well, I don't have more.
Okay.
I'm done. See you in August.
Thank you all for hanging out with us for the last hour and a half chatting. I think the next live's on Becca's channel, theoretically.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Why do you look
I know
so
I passed this
scared?
one off to you, but that's because I already had my video schedule in, and if I do a live on a Sunday, I don't post a video on a Sunday. So I was like, no, I didn't have enough advance warning.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm happy to do it. Happy to be here. Although I did say I didn't want the 3rd book because if I do end up keeping with it, I feel like the last book should just fall to Sandra no matter what. Like,
yeah.
It's your baby. We'll fight this one out backstage.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Leave any extra thoughts in the comments, and we will be sure to look at those, as well as the Discord, which I need to link. I will do that in a moment. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.